Alright everyone, welcome to the Tonto's Demise, back by popular demand, I guess. Feeling like a rock star? Everybody, I think it might be nobody, but everybody seems to be missing the video reviews. I'm back in demand. You guys called my agent, he called me up, said, hey, I got all these demands for you. People want you. They want you back. They miss you. They they need to listen to you to help fall asleep at night. And I can't deprive people of a good night's sleep. So here I go. We are back, baby. All right. What should we talk? We've got not one. We've got 2 weeks to review because just didn't think we were coming back. Thought we were retired. That we rode off into the sunset last season on the girly train. So what should we talk about? You can probably see the reflection of the scores in my sunglasses, perhaps. So, what should we talk about? First of all, we had a great draft this year, I thought. We surprised the shit out of Detling, which was basically the plan, and it worked very well. Everybody was there, which was good. It was nice to see everyone. Get everybody together, except for Jimmy, of course, he was still there. Technically, technology brought us all together. And this is obviously the first year that we are back to everybody's points count. Everything counts. It's made my job a little bit easier because all I have to do is tack on the kicker fractions, any long touchdown bonuses, excuse me, and your defensive point, whatever extra points you get for your defense. A couple people have gotten less points subtracted, but not as much as they used to. But I think the biggest difference of all, and I mentioned this before, I think before the season started, Jimmy was worried about his 275 single week record getting broken. And I believe that I said that it might get broken. I don't think it will, but people are going to come close to it. But I think it'll still stand after this year because 275 is just a ridiculous number. But that being said, I also thought that we were going to have a much higher percentage of 200-point scoring. Somebody's going to score. There's going to be 200-point scores every single week. And thus far, we had 3 in week 1, and we had 5 in week 2. So, we are in a whole new world, my friends. 200 is no longer a great week. It's the new normal. So, if you are not pushing 200 this year, you just might be shit out of luck. Because, we've got 2 weeks down, so that's 6 matchups each week, 12 matchups total so far. In those 12 matchups so far, 8 of them have been won by a team going over 200 points. 8 out of 12. Which is a ridiculous total. So 6 matchups each week. So, I mean, you think each of us have played, so there's 12 of us, 24 24 total games played between the 12 of us, and 8 of those 24, the team has scored over 200. So that's 33% of the time a team has scored, somebody's point total is over 200 now. 33% of the time. Will that hold up? I don't know. We've had some ridiculous stat lines in these first 2 weeks. I don't know if there's something going on with the defenses are just playing poorly at the beginning of the season. I know that the rules have definitely continued to be changed in the NFL to favor offenses and quarterbacks and receivers. I don't know how much that has to do with it, but I mean, in week one, we had Breeze and Rivers going against each other. Both of them were over 70 points. Roethlisberger he had like almost 90, or something like 87. Michael Thomas, I believe, is on pace for 224 receptions this year, which would break the NFL record by about 80. Patrick Mahomes is on pace for 60, I think, would be, no, 80. I think that actually the total would be 80, because he's got 10 in 2 games times 8 would be, he's on pace for 80 touchdown passes. So, can these huge totals stay consistent over the course of the season? I don't know. 5 teams over 200 is probably, might be the peak that we will see. But it's been a tough, just these first 2 weeks have been really, really strange and crazy to watch, but fun to watch as well. So people have had some injuries, some poor play, and just some crazy play. A lot of kicker problems people have had here. So let's get down to why we're really here. Let's talk about week one and what happened in week one. We had the Springfield Isotopes, defending champions, going up against the Co-Commish, the White Wolf. And the Isotopes crushed the White Wolf by 80-some points, as we already know. Let's see. For the Isotopes, we had Mahomes with 46, A.J. Green, Tyreek Hill, and Danny Amendola going for 19, 48, and 6.5. Running backs were James White and Dion Lewis. 15.5 for White, 22 for Lewis. Greg Olsen pitched in 5 points before going out with his injury. Todd Gurley, 26.5. Mason Crosby, 7. And then the Denver defense, Yahoo says 18. I think it was closer to 25-ish. But anyway, that was enough. Said we're counting all the stats. Tyreek Hill, I think he might have had some rushing stats. All the receiving stats for those running backs counted. And so nothing, it's all being added on here. So the Isotopes ended up with 226.8. And for the White Wolf, he had Stafford at 34. His receivers, Beckham Jr., Juju, and Cooper Kupp. Not a bad trio. Been kind of hit or miss so far this year, especially with Beckham Jr., but Juju's been lighting it up. Cooper Kupp is going to put up solid numbers every week. Beckham 22, Juju 17, and Cooper Kupp just about 18. Probably your best player so far this year has been Melvin Gordon. He's been going crazy with the receiving stats, especially scoring touchdowns. In week one, looks like he had 9 catches for over 100 yards. So fortunately for you, all those points counted. Marshawn Lynch got you about 13. Your tight end was Njoku from Cleveland. He didn't do too much, 4.5. Plugged in Royce Freeman in your flex. That went for 7. Boswell was your kicker. He only got 2. And the big difference here, although I don't think, so the margin of victory being 82, there wasn't much that you could have done to change the outcome of this matchup. New Orleans Saints defense really upset you there and scored a big 0. You left Randall Cobb on the bench, who went for, I think with his long touchdown, he would have gotten you about 32. And anything else? I don't think so for that point. So it was a good start for the defending champs. Then we had Sorry, it's jumping me back to week 2 here, so I gotta bounce around a little bit on the computer here. So then we had Bad Luck Bears going against Space Antelope. And I want to know, how did Jay, before the draft, before the Khalil Mack trade, how did he know to draft the Bears defense, that they were going to trade for Khalil Mack and become a dominant force all of a sudden? They were okay to begin with, but he's made a huge difference. How did Jay know to do that? What kind of insider information he had, very questionable there. But this matchup, Bad Luck Bears, he went over 200. Space Antelope had 183.3. Definitely a respectable score. If you hit any other year of the past 10 years, 10 to 12, maybe 15 years now, if you lost with 183.3, you'd feel pretty bad, but you put up a great score and lost to a 200. But, like I said, whole new world, friends. 183 just isn't always going to cut it anymore. Quarterbacks was Breeze versus Rivers. I said before, Breeze had 78 to Rivers 71. Let's see. Bad Luck Bears, your receivers, Mike Evans, Brandon Cooks, and Sterling Shepard. Evans, beneficiary of Fitz magic. He had, I don't think his touchdown was a long one, so he had about 28 points. Cooks went for 14, and Shepard went for 10. As for Space Antelope, his trio, Julio Jones, started out on Thursday night with 31 points, so you were probably feeling pretty good after that first game, only to get let down as the weekend progressed. Hopkins, you got Julio, Hopkins, and Larry Fitzgerald. Hopkins and Fitzgerald both went for about 15 each. Running backs for the Bears, he had Devontae Freeman, who he hated drafting, didn't want to do that, and you should have went with your gut, not with I guess would it be your head, because you went with Freeman, you drafted him, he didn't do much, he hurt his knee. He's on the shelf for a couple of weeks. But you did draft James Conner. Started him. He almost got 38 points on top of Freeman's 8. So that's giving you that balances out to being an average of over 20 points for each one of those guys. So I guess it kind of balances out there. For Space Antelope, his running backs were Drake and Jeremy Hill. Who's starting Jeremy Hill? He wasn't even good enough when he was the main guy on the Bengals. I can't believe somebody even drafted him, let alone plugged him into their lineup in the first week of the season. What were you... Yikes. You must have been really desperate for running backs. But anyway, Drake got you 9.5, and Hill got you 4 before tearing his ACL, and fortunately for you, get this garbage off your team. He's done for the year. Made room for Lindsey, which you spent a lot of fab money on, but it looks like he is going to be worth the cash this year so far. Tight ends were Graham versus Doyle. Doyle wins 11-3. Flex plays Hogan for Antelope and Jordy Nelson. Two of Detling's favorite boys going at each other. Hogan only 2, Jordy Nelson only 5. Kickers were Hopkins for the Bears. He got you 6 or 7. And Lutz for the Space Antelope. He got you same thing, 6 or 7. Then defenses, the Bears, even though they lost to Green Bay, they did pretty good. Scored a touchdown. Had some sacks there. Did pretty well. New England Patriots defense for Space Antelope had a couple turnovers, but they struggled. I think they gave up a decent amount of yards there. Didn't do too good against Houston. Did win the game, but wasn't quite enough here. Space Antelope falls to Bad Luck Bears, 211 to 183. All right. Then we had Disco going up against Possum Magic. Final score was Disco 196.15, so almost a 200-pointer there, to Possum's 179.1, just under 180. And the other year, those are great scores, but not anymore. Let's see, for Disco, he had how should we do this? We'll go with, the first player I will mention will be Disco, and the second one will be Possum. We'll go winner, loser. So quarterbacks were Carr versus Watson, 38-28. Receivers, Michael Thomas, as I mentioned before, Stephon Diggs and Amari Cooper. They went for 41, 14, and 3. For Possum, Antonio Brown, Golden Tate, and Emmanuel Sanders, 24, 21, and 30. So pretty good scores there. Disco has Tevin Coleman and Bryda versus Lamar Miller and Peyton Barber for Possum. Coleman got 11.5, Bryda got 6. But again, Coleman, now a beneficiary of Freeman going out. Bryda had a tough matchup in week 1, as expected for San Francisco there. But it looks like he's going to be the main guy now that McKinnon is gone. Speaking of missing McKinnon, that was one of Possum Magic's keepers. He was hoping to have him in there. He had Lamar Miller and Peyton Barber, who went for 12 and 7. Then tight ends, Reed versus Burton. 14.8 for Reed, 2.5 for Burton. In the flex, Corey Davis versus Carlos Hyde. Both of them were right around 12 or 13. Let's see, kickers were Gostowski and Carlson for the Vikings for Possum there. Gostowski about 10, Carlson 7. Unfortunately for Possum Magic, who can't have any kicker luck so far this year, he drafted no kickers, picked somebody up during the free period. I don't know if he ended up having to use a transaction on a kicker already, but now his only kicker that he ended up picking up, Carlson for the Vikings, is now cut, so he's going to have to pick somebody up because he missed a bunch of field goals this past week. It cost them a win. Then defenses, Baltimore for Disco, Carolina for Possum. Baltimore, I believe, actually, their total was about 45. Had a big game for them. And Carolina got a win. Yahoo says 15, but it was probably closer to 25-ish, I want to say. But Disco gets the win by about 17 points. And let's see. Next up, FC Bohoric versus Mighty Midgets. Scary one going into week 1 here, as Mighty Midgets had Ezekiel Elliott and Alvin Kamara. Kamara, who was feasting against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, went for 43 points all by himself. Unfortunately, he was the only midget who showed up on week 1, Sunday of week 1 here. And FC Bohoric was able to get a win with 185.25. That's pretty close to what the score Detling lost with there. But Mighty Midgets only had 156.85. You know what? Make this quicker. We're just going to run right through FC Bohoric's lineup. He had Dalton go for 39, Keenan Allen for 25, Marquise Goodwin got hurt, went for 0. Kenny Stills had a long touchdown. He went for 26.5. Burkhead, 8. Ajayi, 20. Gronk, 23. Kareem Hunt, 5. Kicker was Elliott. He got about 4. And your Rams defense, Yahoo says 22, but it was probably closer to something in the 30s. And Mighty Midgets, we'll just go right down here again. Roethlisberger, 35.5. Thielen, 16. Marvin Jones, 9.5. Hearns, wide receiver, 3. Running backs, Zeke, 17.5. Kamara, 43.1. Delaney Walker put in 9.2 before breaking his ankle. He's done for the year. Alex Collins in the flex for 7. Kicker was Prater, who missed a couple kicks, I think. He ended up with only about 3. And you also had Detroit defense, who got crushed by the Jets, although they did return the very first offensive play by the Jets for a pick six. So you got some points there, even though they lost the game and gave up tons of yards and tons of points there. But it wasn't enough, as FC Bohoric got the win in week 1. Alright, next up was Dub C Hooligans versus Shawshank Athletics. Dub C just clearing 200 with 200.7. Shawshank only being able to manage 145.6. Got it despite getting a scare here with Aaron Rodgers, as we know, going out in the first half of that game with what looked like a potentially scary knee injury. Looks like you were only going to get a handful of points from him and probably be knocked out in the knockout pool in week 1 and lose your quarterback for a while. Your main quarterback anyway. But he came back, threw a couple touchdowns, got you a respectable total. We'll start with the winner, Dub C, in this one. Go down his lineup. Goff, 37.5. Demaryius Thomas, 18. Jarvis Landry, 17.5. Aguilar, 14.5. Running backs were Mixon and McCoy, 26 and 3. Zach Ertz, your tight end, 10 points. Chris Thompson in a flex, just under 25. Kicker was Tucker. He got you about 12 or 13. And then Minnesota defense got you, Yahoo says 27. It was probably closer to 35, 36, something in that range. Quite often, the number jumps up either like 3, 6, or 9, somewhere in that ballpark, from whatever Yahoo says. Unless your team had a crazy game. That's usually around what it bumps up. But anyway, for Shawshank, he had said Rodgers go for almost 48. His receivers, T.Y. Hilton, 15.5. Allen Robinson, 10. And Robert Woods, about 7.5. Leonard Fournette only got you 8.5 before he went out with a hamstring injury. Did not play then in week 2. You started Derrick Henry. He got you 4 points. Benched him in week 2. Went with Engram for your tight end. He only got you 3.5. Flex was Funchess from Carolina. He got you 7. Kicker, Bryant from Atlanta, got you about 7. And then in Jacksonville defense, one of the best matchups of this week was Minnesota versus Jacksonville. Your guys' 2 defenses. Excuse me, Jacksonville, Yahoo says 20. I think it was closer to 30. It's more in the low 30s. But it was not enough. Said 48 from Rodgers and 30 or so from Jacksonville. Your buns did all right. Josh's buns did all right, but the meat failed to prove worthy. And for a week 1 victory, as Dub C pulls that one out by about 55 points. All right, and the final week 1 matchup was Hillbillies on PCP versus Gags to Riches. And Hillbillies gets a win with only 170 points. Got to make you teams like Detling and who else feel bad with Possum. Said he outscoring Hillbillies on PCP, but still losing your matchup. But that's the way it goes in fantasy football. Hillbillies, you were the winner here with 170. You had Tom Brady go for 49, Josh Gordon 8.5, Crabtree just under 13, Robbie Anderson, I think, was it week 1? Yeah, you talked about this on the podcast. All 3 of your starting receivers had 1 catch, I think. No, Crabtree, looks like Crabtree had 3. Josh Gordon only had 1. Robbie Anderson only had 1, but they all went for touchdowns. So Crabtree said he had 12.8. Anderson just over 10. Running backs were David Johnson and Christian McCaffrey. Johnson 17.5 and McCaffrey 13.5. Kyle Rudolph, tight end, his only catch, okay, that was the other guy. His only catch was a touchdown. He got you 8.1. Flex was Jordan Howard, got you 15.5. Butker from Kansas City was your kicker. Looks like he got you about 10, 9.5 or so. And then the Eagles defense, let's see, Yahoo says 13. They won the game. It was probably closer to 25, something like that. But more than enough to get past from Gags to Riches, who had the lowest point total in week 1, and he was the knockout victim with a score of 143.8. We had Cousins at 43, Davante Adams 20, Jamison Crowder 6, Pierre Garcon only 4. Running backs Barkley and Cook. Barkley just under 24 and Cook 13.5. Tight end Travis Kelce, only 1 catch there for 6 yards, so 1.5. Your flex was Jamal Williams from Green Bay. He only went for 4.5. Kicker was Zerline. He went for 13 or 14, maybe even more than that in this first week. But in week 2, he got hurt as well. Got you a 0 there. And then Seattle defense, you went with them. They lost the game, but they did have a couple turnovers. Didn't do too bad. Yahoo says 13, and I think it was right around there somewhere. So that's where we were after week 1. We had, let's see if I think these standings now have been changed. So we had the Isotopes, I believe. Then it was the Bad Luck Bears. Then Dubsy Hooligans was 3rd. I think Disco would have been 4th. FC Bahoric would have been 5th. And Hillbillies were 6th, I believe. And so 7th was Space Antelope. 8th was Possum. 9th would have been Mighty Midgets. 10th was Shawshank. 11th was the White Wolf. And Gags to Riches down in the basement in 12th place. Then we went on to week 2, which proved even more high scoring than week 1. I think we said that Jimmy's 275 would probably get tested, might get pushed, but I didn't think it would get broken this year. And we had probably one of the scores that's going to get us probably about as close as it's going to be with Mighty Midgets, and we are in week 2 going for 245 points. So that's with said Roethlisberger going for 87. So to get that 275, I think I said before too, you needed a perfect storm of events to happen. A lot of things to go right. Your defense getting a shutout, your quarterback doing a huge game, wide receivers having a bunch of touchdowns. So 270. I mean, as great as Mighty Midgets did this week, they still only managed 245. So at 275, I'm gonna say that it's safe for at least for now. But hey, I could very easily be wrong. So in week 2, we started with the Dubsy Hooligans going up against the Springfield Isotopes. And the Isotopes took this one down 225 to 154.55. Let's see. For the Isotopes, we had Mahomes at 68, AJ Green 30, Tyreek Hill 20, Danny Amendola 7, Dion Lewis 5, TJ Yeldon 9, Austin Hooper 17, Todd Gurley 32, Mason Crosby almost 18, I think about 18 and a half, 19 points. Pretty good game for a kicker. And then the Denver defense, Yahoo says 10. I think it was right around there, maybe just a little bit more than that, maybe 13, something like that. They didn't have a very good game against the Raiders there. But it was more than enough to get past the Dubsy Hooligans. He had Andrew Luck for 32, Demaryius Thomas for 6.8, Jarvis Landry for 12, Nelson Aguilar for 23. Running backs, Mixon and McCoy, both of these guys got hurt in the game. I think Mixon played until the end, though. McCoy did not. I think Mixon had some surgery, so he's out for a little while. McCoy, they might end up holding him out for a little while. We'll have to wait and see. But Mixon went for 9.5. McCoy went for 10.5. Ertz, 20.5 in your tight end spot. Flex was Chris Thompson again, who had 13 catches. He only had 1 rushing yard, I see, but 13 catches for 92 yards. So, hey, take those numbers any place you can get them. 22.3 was his total. Tucker was your kicker. He made one field goal and a couple PATs. He got you 7 or so. And then Minnesota defense, tie game against Green Bay. So you didn't gain 3 points, but you didn't lose 3 points either. They had a couple of sacks, gave up a lot of yards and points. I think Yahoo says 4. I want to say the actual total was something like 10, something like that. But anyway, not enough to get past the Isotopes as they moved to 2-0, and the Dub C Hooligans dropped to 1-1. Then we had Disco versus the White Wolf. Disco cracking 200 this week. He flirted with it last week, got over the mountain this week with a score of 217.7 to the White Wolf having 157.6. So about a 60-point margin there. For Disco, he had Derek. Yeah, I keep wanting to say sometimes David Carr, but it is Derek Carr. He had 47.5. Previously mentioned Michael Thomas. He had 16 catches in week 1, 12 in week 2, so that's 28 so far. On pace, if you extrapolate that for eight times, 2 games, 26 in 2 games, or 28 in 2 games, times 8 is 224, I believe was the number. So he had 31. Diggs had a long touchdown and also 9 catches, 2 touchdowns actually. He got you 39 probably because he had a long touchdown. Amari Cooper showed up after 1 catch in week 1. He went 10 for 116. Your running backs taking advantage of Coleman with Freeman being out there. He went over 100 yards, did pretty good, got you about 19.5. And then Breida had a long touchdown run, which put him over 100 yards rushing. He got you 28. Actually, it would be 31 with the long touchdown there. Jordan Reed, 9.5. Corey Davis again in the flex, 10.5. Gostowski, about 8. And your Baltimore Ravens defense, much like the White Wolf in week 1, they went for 0. Imagine what your score could have been if your defense had actually performed like they normally do. You would have been probably close to, hey, you could have been pushing 250 yourself there if Baltimore had, if they did what they did last week, you would have ended up with, said 45, you tack that on, you would have been probably around 260. So would have scared the White Wolf there that his record was going to go down. But let's get to his lineup. He took out Stafford this week and went with Case Keenum. Got scared by Stafford's week 1 performance. When the whole team looked out of sorts. But you went with Keenum this week, who got you 34.7. Unfortunately, Stafford went for 65, so that would have been an extra 30 points for you. Receivers, Beckham Jr., Juju, and Cooper Kupp. 9 for Beckham, 31 for Juju, and Kupp for 12. Running backs, Gordon, and you put Royce Freeman in there so that you could flex a wide receiver. You plugged Cobb in a week too late, as that always seems to happen, right? You chase those points from the week before. But Gordon, another big game, 3 more touchdowns, a lot of receiving stats. He was just over 30. And Freeman, 8.5. Tight end, you picked up Watson. He got you 5. So you flexed Randall Cobb. He only got you 7. Boswell, your kicker, got you 1. And your Saints defense did a little bit better. Were able to beat the Browns. Yahoo says 12. It was probably closer to 20, something like that. But said you got to push 200. You got to get in that 180 to 200 ballpark, it looks like, this year. If you want to get a win, and it wasn't enough for Disco, as he moves to 2-0, he's in 3rd place, while the White Wolf drops to 0-2, and he is now currently in the basement in 12th place. Then we had the Bad Luck Bears going over 200 with 215.45, going up against the FC Bahorik with only 138.8. A kind of dismal performance from FC Bahorik this week. Bad Luck Bears, let's see. He had Drew Brees for 48, Mike Evans for 22, Brandon Cooks for 26, Sterling Shepard 5, James Conner 19.5, Rashad Penny from the Seahawks. You went for 3, Jimmy Graham 15.5, Will Fuller 25.5, Hopkins, kicker from the Redskins there, looks like he got you about 10. And again, the Bears defense, Yahoo says 24. I think it was closer. I think it was probably 30, 32, 33, something like that, maybe in the low 30s there. But it said up and down, some pretty good scores there to get you over 200, and wasn't nearly enough for FC Bohoric this week. A lot of single-digit scores here. That's never going to get. It's probably not going to get you a win, as he had Garoppolo going for 36.5. Receivers, Keenan Allen, 12.5. Kenny Stills, 3.5. And since Goodwin was out, he picked up Pettis from the 49ers, who only caught one pass for 35 yards. So he only got you 4.5. Then we had running backs, Jay Ajayi and Adrian Peterson. Ajayi, 9.5. Peterson, only 8. Gronk against the Jacksonville Jaguars only had 2 catches for 15 yards, 3.5 there. Kareem Hunt, after a disappointing week 1, found his way into the end zone this week, got you 15 points. Definitely better than week 1, but you're probably hoping for a little bit more down the road. Down the road from Kareem Hunt there. Kicker was Elliott. He got you only 2. And your Rams defense, Yahoo says 19, but I believe the actual total was 43, if I remember correctly, something like that. So that jumped you up there, but said a lot of single-digit scores isn't going to keep you competitive any longer in most cases here. And FC Bohoric, he is in 9th place at 1-1, while the Bad Luck Bears, they move up to 2-0, and they are in 2nd place. Then we had Gags to Riches going up against Possum Magic. And Gags goes over 200 this week with 209.35 to Possum Magic only being able to manage 133.6. And Possum was the week 2 knockout victim. So these are the 2 teams so far who have been eliminated in the knockout pool. Gags to Riches and Possum Magic. Said Gags, he had Kirk Cousins, 76.75, plus he had that long touchdown. So that was pushing you almost to 80. Man, I don't remember a season where we've had several quarterbacks going over 70, 80 points in the first 2 weeks. It's crazy. Devontae Adams, 20.5. Jamison Crowder, 5.5. Pierre Garcon, 9.5. Barkley and Cook, 25 for Barkley and Cook with 12. Believe he hurt a hamstring in this game. We'll have to wait and see what happens with him this week. Travis Kelce bounces back against the Steelers. He goes for 30. Jamal Williams goes for 10. Said Zerline got hurt. I think it might have been pregame warmups. He got you 0. So too late for you to be able to make a move there, and maybe switch somebody out. I don't know if you have another kicker or not. Then you had Seattle defense. They lost to the Bears, but they had a couple sacks, couple turnovers. Yahoo says 14. I think that was the actual total. Maybe it was 17. Bumped you up a little bit there. But for Possum Magic, he took out his keeper, Deshaun Watson, and rolled with Alex Smith this week. He went for 49. Watson actually outscored him by only 1 point, so you didn't really. It's pretty an even trade-off there. We'll see which way you turn in the future. I don't know if you gave up on Watson after a bad week 1 performance or what there. And your receivers, Antonio Brown, 15.5. Golden Tate, 18.8. And then Emmanuel Sanders, dropping off a little. He only had 13.5. Running backs, Lamar Miller, Carlos Hyde, 9 and 12. Trey Burton, 12.2. And the flex was Beasley, only 3.5. Your kicker, both of your kickers scored 0. So that kind of makes it fair, I guess. Carlson looks like he made 3 PATs, but he also missed 3 field goals, which obviously cost them the game. They ended up with that tie. I think he missed. Did he miss 2 field goals in overtime? I want to say. That poor guy. That's got to feel bad for him. But anyway, so both of your kickers got 0. Carolina defense only had one turnover. They gave up a lot of points and yards. Yahoo says 3. I think that might have been actually what it was. So a disappointing performance from your defense and some of your bigger guns there. And it was not enough to get you above the survival in the knockout pool. So we say goodbye to Treesize this week. He drops to 0-2 now. He is in 11th place, while Gags to Riches moved up to 1-1. He is now in 6th place. Then Hillbillies on PCP versus Mighty Midgets. Hillbillies was able to get a win last week with a 170-ish score, I think. But he was right around that total again this week. Let's see if it jumps. Yeah, week 1, Hillbillies had 170, and week 2, you had 169. So consistent numbers there. 1 week it gets you a win. 1 week it gets you a beatdown at the hands of the Mighty Midgets here, who I previously mentioned went for 80. Well, getting ahead of myself. He went for 245.8, which is pretty easy to do, or you should definitely clear 200 when your quarterback goes for almost 100 by himself. As I mentioned, Roethlisberger, 87.5. Let's see. Said a lot of the rest of these scores weren't that great for Mighty Midgets, except for Thielen, who went for 31. Then you had Marvin Jones for 15.5. Goodwin from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 16.5. Zeke, 19.5. Kamara, 18. Jared Cook, 9. Alex Collins, 12. Prater, about 10. And the Chargers defense, Yahoo says 17. It's probably closer to mid-20s or 30, somewhere around there. So like I said, mid-teens for most of your players here. 30 from Thielen, probably about 30 from the Chargers defense. And it was enough to break the short-lived 1 week. The highest score of the season so far had been, I think, 226 last week, and that is erased to 245. So we'll see if anybody can touch that this season. It'll be pretty tough to do. As for the Hillbillies, he must have done pretty much exactly in week 1 as he did in week 2, because his total was virtually the same. Let's take a look. I think he actually has some different guys in his lineup this week. Tom Brady, he had 42.5 receivers this time. You went with Crabtree, Golladay, and Tyler Lockett. 10.5, 21, and 17, respectively. David Johnson, Christian McCaffrey. Johnson only 6, McCaffrey 28. McCaffrey 14 catches, only 37 rushing yards, but 14 catches for 100 yards there. Kyle Rudolph, let's see, 14.2. Jordan Howard, only just under 10. Butker went for 6, and your Eagles defense lost the game to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Looks like they had a couple turnovers, but they gave up too many points. They lost the game. Yahoo says 11. It was probably right around there, maybe 14, maybe 17, something in that ballpark. But not enough to get past Mighty Midgets. I ran through his lineup, yeah. So, yeah, we were talking about this before. In week 1, the Mighty Midgets had Alvin Kamara go for, 41, 42 points, and you lost, and now he only goes for 18, and you get a win. So, funny how that works. But Mighty Midgets, with this win, he moved to 1-1, and up to 1-1, I should say, and in 4th place, while Hillbillies on PCP, they dropped to 1-1, and they are in 7th place. Final matchup to talk about after all this time. Shawshank Athletics versus Space Antelope. This one came down to Sunday night, because on Monday night didn't matter. Shawshank was down by about a dozen or so against Space Antelope with Evan Engram and Allen Robinson left to go. And Engram was able to cover that all by himself. So you knew what was it was already locked up going into Monday night. I think that made every matchup already pretty much. I think it was already decided going into Monday night, so nobody really had to stress on Monday worrying about if they were going to be able to get enough points to squeak out a victory on Monday night there. So it's always nice when your matchup is decided and you don't have to sweat it out to the very end there. But anyway, Shawshank Athletics, he went for 182.85 versus Space Antelope's 157.5. All right, Shawshank, Aaron Rodgers, I think pretty much the same as last week, 48.5. T.Y. Hilton, Allen Robinson, and Robert Woods, 21, 18, and 14 respectively. Running backs, you put in, I think, 2 different running backs from week 1 that you had. It was Fournette, who was hurt, and Derrick Henry. You took him out. Went with Crowell and Kerryon Johnson. Got you 6 and 11.5. Said tight end was Engram, who got you 19.5. Covered that total that you needed there on Sunday night. In garbage time, in a completely uncovered touchdown pass there. Funchess still in the flex. He got you 14.5. Bryant, your kicker, got you about 8.5. Jacksonville's defense did pretty good against the Patriots. They won the game. Had a turnover, a couple sacks. Yahoo says 11. It was probably closer to 20, which is a fairly low score for the Jacksonville Jaguars defense, but it didn't cost you a win here. As for Space Antelope, Phillip Rivers, 48. Julio, 11.5. Hopkins, 23. Larry Fitzgerald, 5.8. Looks like he suffered also a hamstring injury. Not sure the severity of that. We'll have to see how that plays out this week. You had Kenyon Drake go for 17. And as I mentioned before, you're a big free agent acquisition. Spent $50 of your fab on him. Patrick Lindsay. Is it Patrick? Yes. Is it? No, it's Philip Lindsay. So, yeah. He got you 15 points. So not too bad there. No, he didn't find the end zone at all. So we'll see how that plays out for the rest of the season with him. If he ended up being worth the money or not, I'm going to guess that he probably will be. Then we had tight end Kittle for 4. Hogan in the flex for 19. Lutz, your kicker, for about 8. Patriots defense, you had Jacksonville versus New England here in this matchup. And Yahoo says 6. Looks like New England had 2 turnovers, but they gave up a lot of points and a lot of yards. I think Yahoo says 6. It might have been 9, but probably not much more than that. It was somewhere in that ballpark for the Patriots defense, maybe 12. But not enough, as Space Antelope, he drops to 0-2. He is in 10th place, while the Shawshank Athletics, they moved up to 1-1, and they are in 8th place. And I think that's everybody. So we ran through 2 weeks here. Anything significant to talk about that I didn't already? Said Gags and Possum Magic are the first 2 teams eliminated in the knockout pool. Half the league is 1-1, while we got 3 teams at 2-0, 3 teams at 0-2. Some good matchups coming up here this week. As for Space Antelope, Possum Magic, and the White Wolf, none of them are playing nobody's playing each other this week, right? No. Possum has, okay. So, you've got all 3 of those guys trying to avoid going 0-3, which would put you in a pretty deep hole to try and climb it out of if you're 0-3. That basically means you've got 10 weeks left to try and get at least to win 7 of those 10 when you've already lost 3. So, but it's still early. Matchups are going to be tough. Still, everybody's team has the potential to blow up from week to week here, especially with these receiving stats counting for those running backs. Like I said, McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley both had 14 catches. Chris Thompson had 13 catches this week. So any of these guys that you've got plugged into your running back and any running backs that you've got in your lineup have a chance to do something like that, blow up. You never know when they're going to blow up and have 10 catches, things like that. There, although those three guys that I mentioned are going to catch a lot of passes, as they're expected to do that anyway here. So, said good matchups this week. Anything else that I did not cover? I don't think so. I think that's pretty much it. So, we got the recap that you all wanted, and so maybe I can go back into retirement, or maybe we'll be back here again next week for the week 3 recap. Anyway, so we did it. Here it is. You gotta please the fans. So I'm sorry. If the picture might be a little bit darker than usual, my trusty lamp that I have here, desk lamp, I just realized that the bulb is burnt out, so I got to get a new one, which is very disappointing because I've had this lamp since probably high school, definitely at least high school, so over more than 20 years. And looking in here, and I use it every week for like the reviews and stuff I turn on here, and I'm looking at the bulb, and it says Service Star, which I don't remember. I don't recall changing the bulb for this lamp any time recently. But Service Star was the brand back in the 90s when my dad worked at East Hills TV, and Service Star was one of the big brands of everything that they sold, like any kind of tools and things, random things like light bulbs and stuff like that. So many things were Service Star. So I'm wondering if this light bulb somehow survived about 25 years of use. And it's not one of those, newer bulbs that is supposed to last 20 years. I'm not sure they had those back then. But anyway, I'll have to figure that out, get a new bulb in here, maybe get some more light, maybe do some daytime, rethink my strategy here, and do some maybe daytime reviews on maybe like Tuesday afternoon when I actually would need my sunglasses. But anyway, that's it, guys. This season has been wacky so far, fun to watch. I'm not going to say anything about the Isotopes and where they're at, which is, they're so far, but I still think there are definitely teams that are really good that I'm not looking forward to playing this down the road here. So only 2 weeks down, so a couple of teams that are at the bottom, they could start winning. The teams at the top could very easily slip up and lose a couple games, and by the middle of the season, 5 or 6 weeks down the road, who knows where we're going to be at. So, and plus we've already had a slew of injuries, so you just never know what's going to happen. But we've had some crazy stats, some crazy scores. Teams are going to keep pushing 200 points. You're going to have to keep doing that. We'll see how long that lasts. But the bottom line is, win or lose, it's going to be fun to watch, as it always is. So, all right, guys, hope you enjoyed. Kept it actually kind of pretty short here, huh? We're under an hour. So that's it. Good luck here to everybody in week 3, but especially me, I guess. So, all right, thanks, guys.